Good day, everybody. Good day. Today I'm finally here to show off the new draft league that I've joined. I didn't really have much of a plan after the PMPL was coming to an end for this season at least. Like, I'll still be in that server and all that, but like, I have no idea when the next season of that Wi-Fi division is going back up, but I also know that for the summer, I'm probably going to be taking some time off. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I'll be able to squeeze in the league over the summer, but I'm going to be working a lot. I got this like internship thing I got lined up, so it's going to be not a whole lot of time to do something this summer. So I wasn't quite sure what my plan was in terms of draft from now until then, until I got a very particular offer. It piqued my interest. This is from Ducky and Soulblaze run this league. This is the CDL, the Castelia Dynasty League. Ducky was in the PMPL. I played him in week 9, I believe. Pretty cool guy. And this is an ORAS Wi-Fi league. So I guess they found this way to like a way to like make the emulators like set up like their own Wi-Fi rooms, so we can like Wi-Fi battle on the emulators, which is pretty cool. I actually only played Gen 6 Draft in Speed Tour formats. I haven't played it in an actual like real like draft season, but it is like the generation that I grew up watching, so it's the generation Draft was born in. So it's being able to actually have the opportunity to play it is very, very cool. Yeah, because I get to test all these things that I like watched growing up, and with the knowledge that I have today about the game. So pretty cool, pretty cool. So there's 12 people in this league, and I was 4th pick overall in the draft. I also did this entire draft over Beach Week, so that led to a lot of fun picks getting picked. I'll just say that it was a very I didn't really have much of a plan going into this. What I did have was just like a couple mons that I really wanted to get just because I wanted to try them in a draft format, and yeah, this is an opportunity to do so. So draft order came out. Like I said, I was 4th pick overall. There's one mon in particular that I really wanted to get, and I wasn't sure how early it was going to go, but I figured I had a good shot at it, and thankfully it was able to make it back around to me, and that's Kieran Black. So this is one of the very few formats where it's still allowed, because back in Gens 5 through 7 it didn't have access to Dragon Dance or reliable physical ice stab, which made it usable in OU and Draft and all those formats, because it wasn't broken. But that doesn't distract from the fact that the stat line is still insane, and it's still a very versatile Pokemon. Like, you see 170 attack, and especially if you played like Black and White OU, you're just assuming like band and very simple sets, but it's not. Especially because it still has access to Roost as well, so it can actually it's very fat. Like 125, 190, it's deceptively very hard to take down, even though it has like a typing riddle with weaknesses. It's nothing I can't play around, and it's like I said, it's an attacker that can just start blowing things up with either outrages or ice beams, because 120 special attack still hits really hard. It's got earth power, it's got fusion bolt, so it's got the coverage it needs to succeed. It just requires a bit of support, but for a 1st round pick, I'm very glad I got it. Like I said, this is one of the few formats it is still allowed in, so it's also just look at it. I can't not take it. I can't. Like, I have the taste of a 12-year-old sometimes, and this is definitely one of the cases. I can't not see the giant dragon legendary and not take it. I was also debating between a couple other picks. Like, I know Mega Gardevoir is the best mon in the format. It went 1st pick, but like if I was 1st pick, I was getting Kieran Black. I had my heart set on this mon basically since I joined the league and I realized it was an ORAS format. I've had my heart set on this mon, so I'm very glad and very lucky to be able to get it. Now this next mon, I was also considering picking up in the first round if Kyurem got taken and I ended up in a later spot. I mean, even when it made it back, like, even when it was in the first round and Kyurem was still available, I was still debating not picking Kyurem because there was still one other mon that I really wanted to use in draft and I know is incredible in this format. And somehow I was still able to pick it up even in the 4th pick. So it's a snake format, so after the first 12 picks go, it goes in reverse order, so like first and then 12 picks twice, then 11th and etc. So I basically almost got it. I got it at the very end of round 2, which is very surprising for this mon, because it's where is it? It's Excadrill. This is the best spinner, best hazard removal in the format. There's no great tusk to compete with, no iron shreds, none of that. The only other like quote-unquote comparable mon in terms of being able to get rid of hazards in this format is like what's it called? Starmie. I mean, and there's some good magic bounce users as well, like Mega Diancie, Mega Sableye, but that's like they can't manually get rid of hazards once they're on the field, and they need to take a turn to Mega, which is its own can of worms. But the thing is, this is the best spinner in the format, like without a question. So being able to pair this with Kyurem to help ease the rock weakness it's incredible. 110 HP can do great things. Its defenses are terrible, but its typing and HP can kind of like back it up. 135 attack is going to hit hard whether or not it's invested. It still has access to Toxic and Jizz Gen, which is pretty cool. And that's something I'm probably going to be spamming a lot because one of the things I did learn from playing like a lot of ORAS speed tours over the winter is just how good of an offensive and defensive tool Toxic really is, and how if Gen 9 did not limit the distribution of that move, then I think we'd be playing a very different metagame in Gen 9. And I think it shows in a lot of these older gens. It makes defensive teams a lot stronger, but also it helps fill out like coverage options on offensive Pokemon. I'll get into that later, but Excadrill I think is going to be a great user of that. Great spinner, great attacker, Swords Dance Sweeper. I'm gonna spoil ahead, I did not end up getting a Sand Setter. I was trying to get Tyranitar or Mega Tyranitar at one point, but it ended up getting taken from me and I just didn't want to reallocate for Mega T-Tar at that point. But I think Mega T-Tar is still undrafted as well as Hippo, so if things don't work out with the current team, I might do some switching around to get one of them. And I don't even mind getting Hippo because even though they're 2 grounds, it's like that's a bulky ground. This is bulky, but it's not. It's got meat on its bones, but it's not bulky. It's not a wall. It's not Hippo. They do very different things, so I wouldn't mind picking that up maybe and switching it up if it comes down to it. But other than that, even without Sand, it's Excadrill. It's a great mon, and yeah, I'm very glad I was able to pick it up. So next, I wanted to get a nice I wanted to start on my defensive core because I had 2 great offensive mons. I wanted something to start off with defense. I looked at a lot of stuff. I looked at Gliscor, I looked at what was the other one? Skarmory. I looked at all that kind of stuff. But I settled on Deoxys defense because spikes. That was the main reason. I think I was really close to getting Gliscor again, but I really wanted spikes because ORAS removal is not very good, and I already had the best removal option in Excadrill, so I really just wanted to get a great spiker, something that can really take advantage of the meta, and I think Deoxys defense very much fits that bill. It was so good at spiking, it literally got banned from OU, so I think I can do great things with it in draft. It's obviously incredibly tanky, very fast actually for this kind of like. It's very fast for how like bulky it is, and 70 offenses might sound bad, but it has like all the coverage in the world and Calm Mind and Cosmic Power. It can do things. It's not just a passive wall. It has look, it's got the coverage. It can set up as well. You have to respect that. You have to respect weakness policy stuff. Even like Toxic again. Another mon that makes great use of Toxic in this gen. So it helps set up Stealth Rock as well. Like that's all just, it's nice. It's just a very fat glue mon. Also, offensive ghosts are almost non-existent. It's like what, Gengar, Chandelure, and Golurk. I don't know, and they're all like ruined by Pursuit. So being Psychic is a much better defensive typing in these older gens as well. So after that, I got Jolteon. Now this was a very controversial pick both at the time and even now, just because it's like, why would I take this so early? Like Jolteon is Jolteon. It's very limited. And there's no Terra in this format either to save it. But my logic behind this pick was the speed. ORAS has a very strange speed. I guess strange. I say strange just in comparison to modern times, like when everything is running around with base 110 plus speed and stuff like Garchomp is now considered slow. It wasn't like that back in the day. If you were 100 base speed, you were fast, but that was also like where a lot of mons were clumped up, like all the Pixies, Volcarona, all those guys were clamped at base 100 speed. A lot of mons are base 100 speed, like the Charizard, Salamence. If you were faster than 100 base speed at the time, in this generation, then you were fast. So I really wanted to get something that can capitalize on that, and also be faster than just most Pokemon in the format in general. The big one being Torrentee. Like that thing has caused me nightmares in Speed Tours, and I wasn't gonna get it at this point in the draft, so I wanted something that could take advantage of that. I didn't want Crobat because I wanted a grounded poison. I didn't want to stack up on that. Weavile was gone, Talon was gone, so basically like I said, that's the reason I took this so early. And I don't think Jolteon is bad. I think it's kind of underrated because we have hidden power. It's not banned in this league. We have hidden power access, so is it worse than Terra? Yes, by a lot. The power and the lack of stab really hurts. But what it doesn't have to be a Specs attacker every week. I would only really run Specs if I think I can nail whatever their ground type is with HP Ice or whatever. But it also, once again, Toxic. I think Toxic is a great piece on Jolteon because you wanna. What ground type is switching into Toxic? You have to be Ground Poison or Ground Steel, and I already have Drill, and I don't think anybody took. Did somebody take Steelix? I'm not sure, but there's that. Because you're naturally just going to switch into your ground type on this, I can click Toxic on that assumption, or whatever your electric immunity is. I can click Toxic, and then it kind of whittles down its own counters for itself, which is very nice. It also just has some cool support moves, the Keel Bell, and Wish, and Baton Pass, so I can get some momentum even without relying on Volt Switch, which is pretty nice. Also Volt Absorb, so it's It's another electric immunity, so Excadrill doesn't kind of have to carry all of that weight on itself, which are pretty convenient. Its bulk isn't the greatest, but depending on the matchup, I may not need to run max speed necessarily. So I can afford to kind of go into more bulky directions, or even modest, depending on the matchup. So after that, round 5, we've got Mandibuzz. I don't know. It's been a long day, I'm sorry. And I don't really have time to re-record, so we're just gonna keep rolling with it. But we got Mandibuzz. So I wanted another defensive piece to kind of pair with Deoxys and kind of start building that bulky core. And if you've seen the last draft league and you know what I've done in previous leagues, you know I'm a big fan of Alola Mola. I just like that idea of this very fat Mon that can just switch in on everything and use flip turn to get out of there and get momentum. And I think Mandibuzz is going to be able to play a very similar role on my team. Being able to... It resists a couple of things that I really needed it to, that the team really needed, like a Dark Resist, a Ground Immunity, Psychic Immunity, a couple other things that are pretty nice. But it has incredible defensive stats. 110, 105, 95 can do great things. It's a defogger, probably one of the better defoggers in this format, because... So, there's a whole debate about defog, right? Because this is the generation where it started. This is where defog got that buff to remove hazards. I think Mandibuzz is definitely one of, if not the best defoggers in this generation because it is not limited in its move slot choices. You can fit the only move you basically have to acquire on Mandibuzz is Roost. Other than that, you can literally fit whatever other moves you want: Knockoff, Defog, U-Turn, Taunt, Foul Play, Whirlwind. It has an incredible support move pool, and you can just kind of mix and match whatever you want depending on the week. But what's nice about it is it's not really a 4 move slot syndrome kind of mon because it doesn't need all of those moves to perform its function of just being bulky. If you want bulky pivot or whatever, you smack U-Turn, you smack Defog if you need hazard removal. And then it still has open slots. It's very nice. And I think like a Alomomola, it can stick around for a long time. Being weak to rocks in this gen is not great because no boots, but Roost is also 16 PP, so that's like you can kind of play around it. And then I think it's better than most other defoggers at the time, just because like stuff like Latios doesn't want to run defog that much because you're cutting into its offensive coverage. Same with things like Scizor, Zapdos, stuff like that. They're not bad. Like Scizor and Zapdos are definitely better. Latios was the primary one I was thinking of. Stuff like that. They want to run more offensive-based sets. Mandibuzz does not have that problem at all. So I'm very glad I was able to get this. Forms very nice defensive synergy with DOD because the only 2 things that DOD is weak to, Mandy resists. So it's a nice synergy there. Doesn't really work the other way around because I'm weak to what? Ice, Rock, Electric, Fairy. DOD doesn't resist that, but there are things I can patch up later in the draft, so I'm not too worried about it. And after that we got Whimsicott. So I think Fairy, I'm not sure if I call it a required type for draft, but it's very important, and if you can get one, it will help you out a lot. Especially in these formats where there is a lot of dragons running around, like Garchomp, Kyurem Black, Salamence, Megazard X, all these dragons running around, you don't just want them to have free Outrage spam, so you want Outrage / Draco spam, and a Fairy can prevent that, and I think Whimsicott is definitely one of the better ones in this gen. Obviously not peak, it's not Mega Guard, it's not Clefable, but it's like a solid like B tier Fairy, I'd say. And I like a Prankster mons. They're very funny. Prankster Encore, Prankster T-Wave, or Sunspore, whatever. All that stuff is pretty silly. Incredible speed tier as well. Gives me another just very fast mon in a gen where mons above base like 110 are kind of rare. Gives me a grass type so it can help the eventual Grass, Fire, Water core. Gives some good resistances. And I've seen Gator do incredible things with this in the SPL as well. Again, obviously, that was very much boosted by Terra, and this does not have that, but it's still a Fairy. It's still Stab Moonblast. Its stats are a little underwhelming, but I think it's still going to be good enough to where I can make it work. As it got the speed, so all it really needs to do is just either pivot, support, or click Moonblast. So I think it'll get the job done for sure. It's much better than a lot of the lower tier fairies. Like, you wouldn't catch me dead drafting like Aromatisse or something like that. Something that's just so passive. Whimsicott is very much not passive. If you want to try to take advantage of it, you're going to get paralyzed, or you're going to get encored, or you're going to just get U-turned on. So that's what's very nice about it. Because I've drafted teams before where they just haven't had enough momentum, and that's just not my playstyle. I like momentum. I like switch moves. I like being able to bring in like Volturn chains and being able to bring in big threats safely, especially in a gen like this where hazard removal is going to be not guaranteed. So after that we got Entei. Now, one of the other Pokemon at the start of this draft that I was pretty set on getting was Arcanine, and that unfortunately was taken away in round 3. It went a lot earlier than I thought it was going to. So at this point in the draft, I was still thinking I need a fire type. Arcanine's so... I like Arcanine in this format so much just because it is so bulky and it's still like offensive. It just has a great stat spread. in general, and Morning Sun being able to recover, intimidate purposes. It's very nice. So when that was gone, that was kind of a blow. Maybe I'll trade for it later. I don't know. We'll see. So I was thinking to myself, what can I do to kind of fill this gap in my plans? And I remember that at the time, like Entei and Arcanine during this era, they were both UU, and they were both like very comparable in draft, in Smogon formats. These two were very, very often compared. They have very similar stat spreads, but they do a little bit different things. I think Entei is probably a little bit better offensively, and Arcanine is probably better defensively. So in that case, this Entei might be on Fraud Watch because I kind of want it to be more defensive than it actually is, so we'll have to see if that ends up working out. It's probably the one Mon out of the whole draft that I am like on Fraud Watch about, because I'm not sure how well it's actually going to perform given the duties that it needs to fulfill. But it has Sacred Fire. It can burn things with attacks on both sides of the spectrum, because Sacred Fire and Lava Plume, which is very nice, so I can just choose whatever's better for me. Gets Eruption. Does not get Earthquake for some reason, where even now in Gen 9 still doesn't get Earthquake. Don't know why. They should fix that, but yeah. I'm pretty satisfied with Entei. I think he can do cool things. I'm just not sure how well it's going to fit on the team, so hopefully he can put in some work. And after that we got Yama. So this actually was not a Hariyama originally, this was Toxicroak, but down the line I decided to get a different grounded poison, so I swapped out Toxicroak for Yama during the free agency. And Hariyama, it's not exactly what you think of when you think of a defensive Pokemon, but it very much can fill that role. 144 HP is a lot. It's very easy to slap a Salt Vest on this thing, or Thick Fat, and just tank a lot of stuff. Like week 1, I'm playing against a Weavile, and this is going to be able to just kind of sit on that, which is very nice. Priority and Bullet Punch set up in Belly Drum, just a generally strong close combat, and actually 3 pretty good abilities to choose from. No Drain Punch in this gen is a little sad, but I think it can work without it. I think it's still going to be like a sleeper pick, I think. Like once I discovered this was still around for 8 points, I was pretty like, I'm very curious about it. I think it can do very well in the draft setting, so I'm very excited to try this out. And after that we got Jellicent. This is kind of like rounding out the defensive core, the Grass, Fire, Water core, and all that. There's a bunch of bulky waters in this generation, and I decided to go Jellicent because it was 7 points. That was the biggest factor in it. I think 7 points for something that can be this consistently good of a hit taker, even on both sides of the spectrum, is going to be great. It's a spin blocker for me as well, so anything that doesn't really threaten Jellicent is going to get blocked by this. It helps me keep my own hazards up, my spikes, my Stealth Rock. Like I said, it has Recover, so that's the thing it has over a couple of the other bulky waters in this gen. Stuff like Empoleon and... who's the other one I'm thinking of? Tentacruel. Like, those are bulky waters that just don't have recovery, so they're very vulnerable to getting chipped down. So Jellicent's longevity is going to make it a lot better, in my eyes, in the role of a bulky water than something like that would. Its stats look a little underwhelming, but it's generally, like, from what I've seen, it's going to be good enough to handle most threats it's tasked with. This is a Keldeo answer. Like, y'all gotta remember how good Keldeo was back in the day. Keldeo was, like, basically ban-worthy in OU, and it's the top Mon in draft, and this just completely walls it. So that's very nice. It can also do some cute offensive things as well. It gets Energy Ball, Water Spout, little coverage moves, Hidden Power, so I could like slap a Specs on it if the team looks really weak to water, or like maybe run Trick Room and have it as like a bulky attacker. I'll have to see what ends up panning out, but yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with this. And after that we got Mega Pinsir. So I was debating between a couple of different Megas for this draft. Mega Pinsir is definitely one I've had my eye on since the start because I've used it before, and I think it's very fun. I love this guy. Quick Attack, or Quick Attack is just a very strong combo, especially in Gen 6, which is before the Aerialite nerf. But the speed tiers don't work. How do I word this? It's like when you Mega Evolve in Generation 6, you keep the original speed stat of the Pokemon you were before, and you don't get the new speed stat until the turn after. So I'm gonna be a little slow at the start, unfortunately, but there's ways to, like, Quick Attack is one of the biggest ways to work around that, because it's priority. And it's really strong priority when it's flying, it's stab, it's boosted even further by Aerialite, because the boost is like, what, like 1.3 in this gen, I think? Whatever it is, it's bigger than it is now. So, very, very strong. The quad watch weakness is important, but I felt confident in my two hazard removers, in Drill and Mandy, to be able to kind of pick this up and like know that it'll be able to still perform even with the Rock's weakness. So I'm very glad to have this here. I think this is gonna put in a lot of work. This is definitely one of the big sweepers of the team. So I'm glad to get it. Very glad to get it and excited to use it. Now, at this point in the draft, I was like very much thinking like, I don't know what else I need. Like I was very much thinking of that special attackers. That's what I kind of came around to at this point. So and I also have like a fairly decent sized budget. So I'm like, what can I get with this level? Like, what is the best special attackers that are available? And I was between Nidoking and Reuniclus. And I already had DOD. I didn't want just a very similar bulky Mono-Psychic one, so I got this. And this ended up being the Grounded Poison I'm going to use instead of Toxicroak. And it's Nidoking. I think Nidoking in draft, it sounds so scary. I've played against it, I think, once or twice, and it's definitely something you have to consider a lot in the prep, because this thing can basically mix and match its moveset to hit an entire team. Its dual stabs are pretty good. You got superpower if you need to hit like Chanseys or whatever. You got Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Fire Blast. It's so hard to prep for. Sheer Force, Life Orb, Nidoking. It's a classic set. It does have a bit of an issue with speed, but I think its speed tier fits fine based on my team, based with everything else I have. But if anything, that's probably going to be the biggest dagger to it. But I think it can still work around it, either running a Scarf set or just using it as a wall breaker more than anything else. I mean, that's the main reason I picked it up. It's a special attack. I need a special attacker, so as long as it can just break down those physical walls for stuff like Kyurem or Excadrill or Pinsir, then I think I'm going to be in pretty good shape. And Nidoking's going to be the one to do that. And so, for the last pick, again, very similar mentality of I don't really know what I want. I kind of don't really require anything else, per se. But I wanted another just strong special attacker. And at this point I only had 5 points. So I'm like, what is available? What's lurking around in 5 points that I can get? And I found Explode. And I think that for 5 points this is actually going to be pretty good. Stab, Boom Burst, Scrappy is going to be very... I love using offensive normals in Gen 9, and by offensive normal I mean Ursaluna and Ursaluna Blood Moon. Those two are incredible. This is very much not those in either way, and I'm not trying to make that comparison, but just... I think from those two I've learned that offensive normal is kind of slept on. If you're clicking a strong enough normal move, then I think you'll be alright, and that's what this is here to do. It's here to click Boom Burst. It's got some coverage options if it needs to. It's got Focus Blast and Fire Blast for the steals and rocks and whatever. But 99% of the time, this is here to just click Boom Burst. 68 speed is pretty miserable, but it's like just enough to outspeed like offensive mons with a Scarf. So that might just be what I have to do every week. Or I run Specs and use it as a wall breaker. So it's got a little bit of versatility to it. So it's another mon I'm very much like curious about, and I think it could be pretty cool in a draft setting. So I'm excited to try it out then. So yeah, I literally just recorded this video today because the schedule's been very backed up, but I've already played my week 1. That battle should be going live next Sunday, and from there, these should just be going up every Sunday. So that should be the new schedule for now. And I'm very much looking forward to playing in this league. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys around.